Somewhat unbelievably, it's been over 40 years since Volkswagen introduced the GTI, and this is its 7th edition. Now, they're working on their all-new one, which isn't going to be released until 2019, so this is technically just a facelift. You might have a good look at it and think, has that much changed really? And I couldn't blame you for thinking that. After all, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. But there are some changes, not least a little bit more powers come into the drive, and there are some design changes too. Will it still be as good as the old one? Let's find out. In full HD, full length and full detail, this is Brian with Autogefühl saying, let's go. A lot of what's taken place here could fairly be described as just window dressing. If you ask a lot of auto journalists what they think about the Golf, they'll say, it's the Golf, which is both a blessing and a curse. What they mean is it's so predictably good and reliable, it doesn't tend to do anything that's crazy or really take you by surprise that much. And the facelift is no different. In fairness to Volkswagen, they could be saving all their big tricks for 2019. We do have some nice styling details here though. They want you to still know it's a GTI. I really appreciate the way that the design carries this red line straight through from the grille right into the lights, which now for this edition are full LED. You have the nice hexagonal grille, and because of the array of sensors that they now mount within the badge, we have a flush 2D badge instead of the more prominent raised profile one. The Golf is 4.27 meters or 14 feet in length, and they still want you to know, despite it being discreet, that it is a GTI, so the traditional signs are there. I like the way that the black intakes kind of mold through into the side to just give you a hint. Obviously we have the traditional GTI badge. Now, this car actually comes with a performance pack. That means we have some uprated features as well, not least are these uprated red calipers that you can see, and they're in 18-inch wheels. Important to know is that the Golf comes standard with 17, although you can have them up to 19. That will get you the Golf R wheels. They are of course the most expensive and the hardest to hide from your partner. As we go back through the side of the car, you can see nice detailing with a black strip, and again for the performance pack we have a nice spoiler at the rear here. According to Volkswagen, that's not just for show, it does aid the handling. Sorry to say we haven't quite managed to get it fast enough to find out if that's true or not, but it looks pretty sporty anyway, I think. What do you think? Now we come to the business end, and I think they've done a pretty good job here. There's no point owning a GTI unless other people can observe that you own a GTI, so you can't be too subtle, but then again, it still has to do school runs, so you can't be too overblown. We have a nice discreet logo, and I think these twin chrome exhausts give just the right amount of idea to anyone driving behind you. The styling, I would say, is on the right side of discreet. It works for me. It has a nice, clear Golf emphasis on the road, but it doesn't push it too much. Let's take a look inside. Well, okay, that's not the biggest boot in the world, but it will hold 380 litres, which for its class is not bad at all. So a pretty standard key, nothing there to get too excited or disappointed about, but you do get the GTI logo just to remind you in case you've forgotten. Now before we go in, our car is Tornado Red. It's one of 3 colours that you can get as standard with the Golf. There's this, there's black ruby, which is, as you'd imagine, very dark, and there's also white. Anything else you can have, there's a full range of colors available, but they will all cost you extra. So, been pretty pleased with the outside so far. Let's take a look inside and see what we think. Keyless entry. And the first thing that we find when we look in the car is our old familiar friend, the tartan seats. They're very well known from every single edition of the GTI, so I'm happy to see that they haven't skipped on this one. As you can see, we've got wide bolsters both at the base and the side. They're going to provide us with lots of good grip for when we're making full use of that engine. Looking back at the door for entry, have a nice matte finish here, some chrome effect handles, wing mirrors, the window controls, and a pretty decently sized pocket for storing what you could need. On the sill on the way in, there's a nice touch of a chrome effect strip. Let's get in and see how it feels. Nice. Well, these side supports on both the seat and the back really do hold me nicely in place. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm actually 5 foot 10 inches in height and 178 centimeters. So you can see I still have a fair bit of headroom here. So if you're a taller person, you should be fine. But bear in mind, this car does not have a sunroof, so you will lose a little bit of height for that. Seating position is great. Really, you would expect it to be. Steering wheel here we have, with the GTI, you get the leather steering wheel. As far as I'm aware, there isn't another option at the moment. Bit of a shame. We have soft touch rubber feel plastic right across the dash. I think they could have done a little better with this, to be honest. When I look at this and I look at the door mountings as well, it just does feel a little bit plasticky. I guess that could be unfair. I think they've tried to make it as inobtrusive as possible with the styling, so you concentrate on the road and not the dashboard. I'm not quite sure if it works for me. We'll have a look after I've driven it for a bit. We have standard VW controls on the steering wheel. Here we have the adaptive cruise control commands, volume buttons for the stereo, the phone commands, and we can scroll right through a myriad of different display options. And talking about that, let's have a look at something. This is the first fully digital display to be featured. Oh, and immediately lets me know that apparently we need to take a look at one of our tyres. The entrance level price for the GTI with the performance pack is €32,450. And if you have a look at the VW configurator, that doesn't buy you a whole lot. There is a wide range of different assistance systems and a huge amount of different things you can have fitted to your car, but it all comes at a cost. So it's nice to appreciate the things that are standardly fitted. I really like this digital display. It works well. Obviously, the advantage of a digital over an analog is that you can have whatever information you want displayed on it. Just to give you an idea, let's have a quick scroll through and see what we can find. Here we go. Now, this is going to be quite exciting. Consumption and range. Although the figures for the performance pack engine haven't yet been published, and don't forget, that has 15 horsepower more than the standard engine, we do have the figures for the standard, and that hopefully will achieve a combined fuel efficiency of 6.4 litres of fuel used for every 100 kilometres driven. Now, we haven't looked at this yet, but we have just driven 420 kilometres. Most of that highway, no crazy driving. So I think we ought to get a fairly good, realistic idea of exactly what's achievable. Let's take a look and see what the car tells us. Here we are, consumption and range. Average 7. I don't think that's bad at all. If we were expecting 6.4 from the lower engine of combined, I think 7 is perfectly acceptable. And given the 350 Newton meters at our disposal, which I did try out on more than one occasion, I think that's actually pretty good. As we go through the menus, we can see a few of the other options that we have available to us. Really, there is everything you could possibly want and a whole lot more. You can also change the way that the setup actually looks, depending on what you're after. There's speed, consumption, efficiency, navigation and driver assistance. I always like the navigation best because I think it's nice to know where I'm going. Talking of things that don't come as standard, let's take a look at the infotainment system. Well, that is certainly an impressive screen. As you can tell, it has predictive touch. It did have predictive touch. I can assure you it works well. As you can see possibly already, the issue with this high gloss arrangement is that fingerprints show up very, very easily. There we are, you can see what happens when you get a little closer. We have high gloss right throughout this unit, and it looks great when it's new, but you always have the fingerprint issue. Never mind. The unit itself works absolutely fantastically, as you would expect. Really couldn't find anything about it while we were driving that I didn't like. Multi-touch is fine, really quick and responsive. It's nice to see that the map system on board works well. Obviously, being one of the new Volkswagens, they're pushing big time on all of the additional services that you can have with the car when you buy it, including maps, full contact, and there's a huge range of different things you can have, some of them bundled together. They're all listed separately on the configurator. You can get a very good idea if you have a look through there. Volume controls, call me old-fashioned, I still like a knob, but that's just me. You also have them on the steering wheel. It's only that when you're driving and you're looking for something, it's not there. But the unit is intuitive, straightforward, easy to use, does its job. That said, we haven't seen the entry-level one. It might not be as much fun. Underneath, we have the options for heated seats. We also have the standard climate control, and then onto our very nice manual gear stick. The traditional Golf stick head, which is, as always, pleasing to use. Start-stop button. Mode select, more on that later when we do some driving. Automatic start off or on, traction control off, parking assist, and rear parking sensors. We also have in this car the rear parking camera, which works really very well, as you would expect. Electronic parking brake and automatic hold slightly further back. Two cup holders here, little bit of room for storage of coins and anything else you need. Between the two front seats, we have a little bit of additional storage underneath the armrest and the all-important glove box. That's not bad. We actually have a bit of room there to put some things. And the optional extras, we have SD card slots and a SIM card slot, which of course allows your car to act as a phone and communicate directly with the internet. We also have an uprated stereo in this car. It's okay, it's not blowing my world. We didn't really turn it up massively loud, but it's nice. I would say that the standard one is probably going to be fine for most people. Okay, well, let's not forget that the Golf is a small car. It actually standardly only comes with 3 doors. 4 will cost you extra. Well, the design language in the back is exactly the same as the front, and funnily enough, I have less of an issue with it in the back. It feels a little bit plastic back here as well, but the mixture of fabrics and hard plastics looks a lot more suitable in the back, for my taste at least. As you can see, I have more than sufficient knee room here, which I really appreciate. For a small car, I say small, but it is 14 foot in length, they've actually used the interior space really well. I've got plenty of headroom back here too, and I think I could travel a good long distance in this car in the back of it completely comfortably. I've got a little storage pocket. I have my own heating and cooling controls, and I even have an armrest with cup holders. Now let's find out what's powering this beast. Lovely. It doesn't matter which option you go for, you're still going to find yourself with a 2-litre TSI 4-cylinder engine. But if you go with the performance pack, then you will get those extra 15 horsepower, taking you from 230 to 245. You will get 350 Newton meters of torque and a very nice engine indeed. So, of course, there's absolutely no point whatsoever in having a GTI unless you're going to have a little bit of fun with it. Now, the model that we're driving comes with the performance pack, and that lifts the price from just under 30 to 32,450 euro. What do you get for that? Well, other than some upgrades and improvements like the brakes, you also get an extra 15 horsepower. That gives me a total output of 245 horsepower coming out of this 2-litre TSI petrol engine. Nice. It also comes with 350 Newton meters of torque. Well, that ought to provide a little bit of accelerating fun. Let's put it in sport mode and see what it can deliver. Okay, so for this test, I'm going to slow it down slightly. We're currently cruising at 130. I want to be a little slower so you can get a sense of the acceleration. We're on the Autobahn, so at the moment we don't have a limit. I'm in fourth at 120. Let's see what can happen. Nice power. Precise, well delivered. The car feels fully in control. And the road looks good, although it is coming up on me very quickly. There are those brakes that I mentioned earlier. Now, one of the most exciting features about the Golf is the way that the chassis interplays with the entire drive system. It's tight, it's lively, and it's responsive, and nowhere do you feel that more than when you start giving the Golf a little bit of power and seeing how it responds. Our car comes with a 6-speed manual gearbox, though because we have the performance pack fitted, you also have a choice of having a 7-speed DSG. If you go for the lower down option, then you have a choice of either a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed DSG. And you might be costing yourself 15 horsepower to do so, but you are saving yourself a little cash, and I don't know how much you're going to notice that difference on the performance. My choice in a Golf is always going to be to go for the manual gearbox because I really want to experience the best of that power. I think you lose just a little bit in translation with the automatic, although that said, Volkswagen do make extremely good DSGs, and if you want a slightly less stressful drive, if you live in a town and you just want to spend most of your time going around there, then you'll have a perfectly pleasant drive. So we've hit a little bit of traffic now. That's a good time to change our driving modes again and have a look and see how the car is going to behave around town. So that's a simple matter of pushing the mode button, and then, you know what, let's put it in comfort and see how it behaves. Well, the first thing that we notice right from the get-go is the change in sound. And nicely, the change in drive too. A lot of the time when you have the higher performance small cars, a big concern is going to be how they handle when you're not wanting to throw them into the corners and really drive them around. And I have to say, the feedback on the Golf is excellent. It really handles everything but the most rough surface very smoothly and with no problem at all. The reason that's nice is that you're not going to feel bad about going to pick up grandmother in this car and taking her to the shops. She won't even know it's a GTI unless you tell her. The drive position in the car is good. A lot of attention's been paid to these seats. Now, I'm not the biggest person in the world, and I have to tell you, I feel pretty tightly held by these lovely pillars at the side. We're going to do a little bit of mountain driving in a bit, and I'm pretty sure they're going to come in handy. But I would say if you're a larger person with a bigger frame, you probably should check out the seats first and make sure they're going to be comfortable for you. We're actually going on a bit of a distance drive today so we can see how the Golf performs, and so far the seats have held up very well. They give me a very good position within the car, obviously a classic Golf layout, so there's nothing here to distress or disturb me. I feel very comfortable after the distance we've traveled. I find no problem with the seat whatsoever. Again, if you're a larger person, I would check it out for yourself. Now a quick word about the instruments. So, this is the first time that I've driven a Golf with a fully digital cockpit. It's nicely thought out. You have lots of different menu options to choose from in terms of what you want to see while you're driving. I personally like the navigation screen, but let's remember this is a GTI, so I'm also going to want a good shot of the rev counter while I'm going. Combined with our large infotainment screen, and this is the largest one you can get, it's just shy of 13 inches across. We have loads of data and the screen is very responsive and easy to work with. I personally like that you can replicate data between the driver screen and the central screen. It's nice because it means that you have your attention where you want it, when you want it to be there. And that helps. My only real niggle about the finishing of this car is that it just feels a little bit on the plastic side. I think that might be a touch unfair, but I noticed it the first time that I got in it, and I still notice it when I drive it. This is all actually soft touch rubber feel surface, but it does look really quite plastic. And when you drive, it does just sort of sit within your peripheral vision a little bit, or at least mine. Just something to be aware of if that kind of thing bothers you. I like the frameless rear view mirror, that's very nice. The wing mirrors are angular, they give me all the detail that I need. In this car, obviously we have side detection, that's always handy for when you're overtaking. We also have a little strip at the edge of the mirror, which of course allows us to see where our blind spot is. And in this car, although we have pretty good all-around visibility, we do have these big pillars here, which obviously are right in an important spot when you are carrying out a maneuver. So nice to know that you've got a little bit of extra coverage with the mirrors. So we've seen how the GTI behaves on the Autobahn very nicely, but we've come a little bit outside to get some smaller roads to see just what the GTI does when it's off the highway. So first of all, let's put it in sport. And we're stationary right now. Now, we should be able to get a 0 to 100 speed of something around about 6.4. We're still on proper roads, so I'm not going to push it quite as hard as it will go, but I think we should be able to get a good idea. Let's see. Well, that was nice. Turns out I didn't need more than a couple of gears in order to achieve that. Felt good. A nice bit of pull, good bit of lift, but never any directional pulling at all. I didn't have any sense at any point of that there was anything other than me in control of the car. The power's delivered really nicely by the manual gearbox directly to the wheels, and it's really very fun. Let's drive on and see what else we can find out. One of the things that the GTI has always been known best for is its well-behaved nature, which is to say that when there's no one else in the car, you can have some fun with it. But when you do have to use it for day-to-day things like picking up shopping and just driving around town, it's very well behaved and it doesn't feel too much like driving an inappropriate sports car. It handles speed bumps fine, you know, that kind of thing. So right now we're right on the shores of Lake Wörthersee, and there's lots of little villages around here, which is not prime GTI testing ground, but it does offer us the chance to see how this car behaves around town. The different driving modes means that we're not always permanently stuck in sports, so let's have a look. I'm going to put it in comfort and we'll see what difference that makes. Obviously we're driving at slow speed through town now, and you don't really need to feel that you've got all 350 Newton meters available at your disposal when you're going out to get some groceries. So the car is nice, comfortable, poised. I'm not being rolled around. I guess you could say that it's largely unexciting around town, but then that's more or less what you'd expect. This car needs to get out onto the open road, and the more bends, the better. So to sum up, this is really all just an appetizer for 2019. I really can't wait to see what happens then. But in the meantime, there is a lot to feel excited about right now. I'm really happy with what they've done with the exterior of the car. It looks sharp, it looks fresh, it looks dynamic without being overblown. And I think that's really hard to achieve, and they've done a good job. The interior leaves me feeling a little bit lacking, a bit too much plastic for my taste. The seats, however, are excellent. The driving layout, the controls are all superb, and they absolutely focus you on the thing that you want to be doing in the GTI, which is driving it. The drive is superb. The balance between the chassis and the components works superbly. At speed, you always feel that you're in complete control of the car. It takes corners as if they're not even there. Absolutely superb. And the modes are nicely balanced as well. If you want a comfortable drive, you can have one. And if you want a bit more excitement, that's there too. Having said that, I have to say that it just makes me feel a little bit thirsty for the Golf R. That's kind of where my heart is, I think. And although it's very, very good, I did want that extra level that the R brings, but possibly that's just me. As far as the GTIs are concerned, This is a more than worthy addition to the lineup and only gives us great expectations to what could come next.